Welcome, everyone. This is Greg Rock, and I'd like to welcome you to the latest installment of our Meet the Author webcast series. We're thrilled to have Professor Jochen Wirtz with us, who is the Vice Dean of MBA programs at the National University of Singapore, and also the co-author of an exciting new book, Intelligent Automation: Learn How to Harness Artificial Intelligence to Boost Business and Make Our World More Human. Welcome, Jochen. We're excited to get going. I've got just a few quick intro slides here, and we appreciate you taking the time to come down and educate our members on the release of the book and some of the major messages that are in there. And I appreciate you staying up late your time and down in Singapore. Thank you so much for coming today. For folks that may be new to BPM Institute, our parent company, Brainstorm Group, will be celebrating its 25th anniversary next year. Our community of communities that we have include BPM Institute, as well as our Business Architecture Institute and our DBiz Institute, where we cover all things to do with digital business and transformation. This webcast is part of a series that has featured many well-known authors and thought leaders in the space, including folks like Jim Siner, James Taylor, Matthias Kirchmer. Most recently, we also conducted a webcast with Dan Morris and Keith Lust about their book focused on hyperautomation. And Professor Jochen, I just want to congratulate you on some of the reviews that I've read from the analyst firms about the Intelligent Automation book. Gartner referred to it as this field guide is essential reading. The folks at Forrester said that this book needed to be written, and the folks at Everest called it a compelling case for intelligent automation. So we're thrilled to be able to have you deliver this to our members, and I'd like to turn things over to you at this point.
Greg, wonderful to be here. Thank you for inviting me to share one of my absolute passions. My background is actually originally in banking, consulting, and then since then entirely in the service sector. And this book was, I believe, and this is really something I've become really convinced about. This is that if you look back 50 to 100 years from now to today, that's when we will say, and this is when the service revolution started. And why? Everything is coming together now. You look back in the Industrial Revolution, late 18th century, that brought us mass manufactured goods at high quality and low cost, and enhanced our standard of living to unbelievable levels here. And I believe that the same is now going to happen with the service sector for services like healthcare, like education, that are incredibly expensive, not very scalable, and intelligent automation will bring that to us on scale. And I'm happy to elaborate on this. Why we believe so is really because all the technologies that were not even available 10, 15 years from now are truly coming together. AI, analytics, machine learning, drones, biometrics, and you name it, mobile, like natural language processing, the cloud, you name it, IoT. And they are progressing at an unbelievable speed. And many of those come to real exciting use cases that have an incredible impact on productivity and quality of processes. And I'm talking here, I'm a service expert, so I'm talking end-to-end customer service processes being fully automated and fully scalable. So I will share some use cases with you in a minute, but let me first introduce you to two great gentlemen who are my co-authors. I'm actually the third author on this book. I'm the academic, and my two co-authors are practitioners, and Pascal Bonnet, he's a Frenchman, and he was my student in the UCLA NUS Executive MBA program, and I still remember interviewing him for admission, and I asked him, why in the world do you want to come to this program? And he told me, I want to move to China. And at that time, he was an EY auditing French companies in Paris. He had never been posted elsewhere. So I was a bit doubtful, but him being incredibly smart, having great pedigree in all of this, we admitted him to the program, and he made it through. He moved to China within the program. We hadn't even finished yet. But I mean, why I'm telling you his story is he did EY auditing. From auditing, so that's a 12-year journey. From auditing, he moved into auditing automation. From auditing automation to BPO automation. From BPO automation, he moved into front office automation, customer service automation. And then he founded the EY practice for AI robotics in Asia. And then McKinsey headhunted him, and he started the practice for McKinsey in Asia, and has fantastic stories on really completely making entire organizations digital. And I show you Jamie with the digital agent of ANZ. That's one of his clients where they really completely automated this whole company. So Pascal comes from the consulting track, having done many digital transformations using the intelligent automation. And Ian, interesting, he started his own company, and I think within 6-7 years, he sold it for a fairly large amount of money to Sykes, and then joined Sykes at the C-level. And his company did call center automation. Right, and you can see where this whole thing comes together here. So it's the guy who does the digital transformation, Ian on customer service or automation, and me, the academic. So we did this book together here, and I think there are great learnings. We have about 500 use cases in this book here, and working with these two practitioners, and from my own academic background in service and service automation, designing customer service processes, I feel we are really onto something here that will dramatically change how we will deliver service over the next 3 to 5 years. And you will see on the next chart here some pictures which we hope we will never see again then. The first one, these were all taken by the authors. The first is a bank in, I think it could be New Zealand. The lower one is a train counter in China, and on the next one you see something. On the next chart you see something horrific. Now don't laugh. This is the back office. I mean, this picture was only taken last year. It is the back office of an MNC insurance company, and what you see here is the unit that processes 400,000 invoices for payment per annum. And over 100 people in this department, and this was completely automated. There are only 4 people today. All the rest is done end-to-end processes through intelligent automation. And that's what we are talking about, digital to the core. Now, what is intelligent automation? We can give you an introduction on the next chart. So intelligent automation is really a combination of technologies. So it's not AI. AI is part of it. Software-based robots is part of it. Workflow cloud platform is part of it. And for me, because I'm in service, a lot of services also have physical robots, or at least holographs. Yeah. So you can see it's really bringing together a lot of different technologies. And you can see on the next chart exactly the key technologies here. So it's not one technology. So we have people, customer, employees in the center. But then the key technologies that are really driving this, number one is vision. So character recognition, image processing, video processing, biometrics. This is all applications on the vision side. Execution is smart workflow, low-code platforms, robotic process automation. That's all doing things. And you will see in the short video I show you, you can really see the execution is, for example, that a credit card gets authorized, email gets sent, and credit card gets sent. You know, this is doing stuff. Then language is natural language processing. This is chatbots, intelligent agents, and I introduce you to Jamie in a second. Yeah, and then think and learn. This is really machine learning, big data, data visualizations, and all of those things. So intelligent automation is not just AI. It's a lot of technologies combined together, and I show you later an end-to-end process where you can really see how that works in practice. But before I go there, I mean, I'm an academic, so let me share 2 little 2x2 matrices with you, and so that help us to think about it. So the first is what I find fascinating. Most people they think about service robots as a little robot greeting you in the store or in the hotel. And yes, of course, if you have baggage to be delivered, room service to be delivered, you need a physical robot. But most processes where this will happen the fastest is what I call intangible actions. So intangible means I don't have to move anything. I don't have to touch anything. And a lot of information, consultation, even healthcare, I don't have to necessarily poke you. It's good enough if I have a camera and see you. Yeah. And to give you some ideas here, I mean, Changi Airport is the airport in Singapore. Currently, there's one information counter on every terminal, every floor, expensive headcount, expensive floor space. I promise you, in 3 years, there will be a holograph every 50 meters. A nice gentleman or lady being beamed from the ceiling, speaking 20 different languages and can answer all the standard questions. So it's incredible convenience for customers and travelers here. And at the same time, you can see all of the cost is in the development. And there is almost no incremental cost. I mean, it may be $1,000, $2,000 to put a beamer and a microphone and a camera and so on into the ceiling here. So you can see, and we will get solutions for almost any service. So whether you talk about retail solutions or reception solutions, restaurant solutions, there will be a mix of these things that will be offered on an industry scale at low cost. And you can see at the moment already, the fastest shrinking job category in America is retail assistants. The minute we have autonomous driving in cars, it will be any kind of driver. But what will happen before, that's already happening now, is anyone in call centers. I think US has 2 to 3% of all employment in call centers. This will shrivel to nothing going forward because this is all information type services that can be offered on scale. And just to show you how far we are here, I mean, look, I have a team of about 40 people at the business school running all our executive MBA programs, and I have maybe 8, 9 people doing admissions. And there are 2 of the people, of the team members, are in charge of the MBA program. And, they know nothing about AI and robot and nothing. But what I told my team, and we have innovation awards and so on, I told them all, if in 3 to 5 years you don't know RPA, Tableau, and all of those tools, it's as if today you don't know PowerPoint, Excel, and MS Word. So, I mean, you have to get those skills. So I paid everyone 1-day course on AI and RPA, a day course on analytics. And guess what? So that team in the MBA admissions team, they never touched RPA before. But we have a Watson's license, and they built a chatbot with that license based on our FAQs, which were on the website before. We soft launched that in September last year. We properly launched in October last year. And guess what? We had 20,000 unique conversations in the first 4 weeks. Can you imagine how many emails and phone calls that team was saved? And these are all the boring questions, like, do you need GMAT? Can I get a GMAT waiver? When do I have to pay the fees? Do you have scholarships, right? I think you get the picture. And so, I mean, we call this democratization of this technology. A lot of these technology becomes no different from any other software that sits on your desktop here. And we can chat about innovation and all of this and how you drive this. I tell all my students and myself, what can you do within your realm of responsibility? I can't change my university. We're a $1.5 billion business, but I can change stuff we do in our team. And there's a lot we can do. Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, I mean, this is, you can see the physical and non-physical. So the non-physical part, anything on call center, information, email, that's the stuff that happens in the next 2 to 3 years. And on the next chart, you can see in another quick matrix here. And I mean, what type of tasks? And you can see that anything cognitive and analytical of almost any type of complexity will be AI robotic delivered. So that's your AI robo advisor. It's a health tech advisor. It's your guy on taxation. All of that kind of stuff will be delivered by AI. And only when something requires true human emotions, this is where people will be, of course, dominant. Yeah? So this is your marriage counselor, your PhD supervisor, when things really hit the fan and there's a big problem and you need somebody who talk to a customer. I mean, that will be people here. And the interesting thing is the minute things gets more complex, cognitively, but also emotionally, socially, it will really be AI and human teams that will deliver those processes. And by the way, when I talk customers, I don't care whether you talk internal customer, external customer, whether you're shared service, whether you're externally facing. To me, that's all the same. Actually, if you are shared services internally, you have so much more opportunity to do this because your customers are captive, But you have to do it right, yeah. And I mean, for these teams here, I give you one example. I promise you, in 10 years from now, if in America you're a GP and you misdiagnose skin cancer, and there's a 99% probability that an AI would have detected it, you can be sued for malpractice. I promise you, because the AI looks at that and gives you a hit list, and that's especially good for very rare illnesses. I mean, my daughter went back from Singapore to Munich last year in March and came down with dengue fever. Her doctor had never seen dengue. So we had in the family had dengue fever here. So if he didn't have, so she knew it is most likely dengue, but if she hadn't known, she would have not been diagnosed. This would have been very, very dangerous. But a GP with AI support, when you put in all of these symptoms, it will come out as a 98% probability dengue. And then the doctor can ask the patient, oh, have you been in the tropics recently? Right. I think that's really where we are going here. And let me show you a real case that has been operational now for a few months. This ANZ New Zealand.
Just started my banking journey. I still have so much to learn.
We can't believe that it's been 3 months since we launched Jamie, and we're really pleased with how she's going. I think customers generally are loving her. She's had well over 12,000 customer conversations.
Lots of people ask me how to open an account.
She's an evolving piece of work, and so by putting her out into the world, we're able to find out how people are responding to her and what they think and what they want from her.
Hi, Jamie. How can I get a new credit card?
I can help you order a new credit card.
And there's another short video on the next chart.
Since launch, you've been available to customers 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. How are you coping with the workload?
It's nice of you to ask, but I'm a digital entity and I don't need to sleep. But sometimes, when no one is talking to me, I watch cat videos on YouTube. Don't tell ANZ I said that.
Yeah, so you can see this is the future of customer service and how to deliver that. In our book, we talk about democratization of these technologies. This is sort of low coding and analytical tools that are quite widely available here. And here you can see we anonymize this, but there's also, you can see an end-to-end process, banking process on a credit loan application. And you can see it is not one technology here. It's from acquisition of the customer with machine learning and improvement and all the way to sending the acceptance, sending the password, and God knows what else is needed to the customer here. And I mean, not to do advertise for anyone here, but I just opened an account with Wise, which is a UK fintech. And they're a registered financial institution in Singapore. And Singapore has something called the SingPass. That means all my government stuff is on the SingPass. And I can authorize, for example, there's an interface API with Wise app. I can authorize them to pull my data, including tax data, credit rating data, and everything else from that app. And that meant that I had a multi-currency account operational with, I think, 45 seconds. This was the smoothest account opening I've ever seen, the most seamless experience I've had. So Wise is an unbelievable sort of company in terms of customer journey design. But you can see, I mean, this They verified my identity. They had verified my facial recognition. That's all because of the interface to the SingPass app. And the same is when I go to a doctor in Singapore, and this has all my health data on it, every single MRI, ECG, and X-ray, whatever I do, blood test is on it. And I can, on the spot, on the app, give permission to my doctor to download certain data from this app, right? Mm-hmm. So, I mean, you can see how this whole thing gets sort of integrated more and more and more.
Jochen, I have to say, what I really love about this particular slide is it's a perspective that many of our members understand. You know, the big gains for BPM, and one of the mantras that we've been beating the drum on for a long time, is end-to-end processes that are cross-department, cross-division, really are where the big gains are. And I think in the early days, folks were applying automation for very small microprocesses and things within a department. But the big wins, I think you would agree, are end-to-end processes, are where you can really layer these technologies on top of each other to improve the customer experience and overall efficiency. So I love this perspective. Can you also tell us a little bit more about the concept of democratizing intelligent automation?
Absolutely. Thank you for asking. And here you can see, I mean, there's so many tools out there that allow almost anyone to automate processes. So they're discovery tools. You can put them onto your PC. This observes you for a week. And at the end of the week, will tell you exactly which processes can be automated with what probability and to what extent. And then once you want to do this, you can simply click on these recommended processes, and the code already comes out. So it gives you, for the standard process, the code, and more. So that's 60-70% of the process is already there. And then you only have to work around the exceptions, more or less. And what you see here is a typical interface. You don't need to do programming. You click and drag and drop and move things. And this is relatively easy to learn. It is really not rocket science. I mean, I pushed my own team at the business school here to go into these types of technologies, right?
Yep.
And you can see on the, I mean, this is just one example here. So it becomes a very easy interface, like almost any other desktop software we are using. Yep. And you can see on the next chart, an analytics tool, which was developed by MIT, and it allows you here on a virtual screen to run very simple correlations. I mean, it's a very intuitive, and it's visualizing it. And here, this is a medical doctor who looks at the incidence of lung cancer and then tries to do this. So these are all very simple tools. And in the book, we have a whole list of these tools with all of the links and the providers. Many of them are open source, or some base tools are open source, so you simply can use them. And for others, I mean, Watson, of course, for IBM, they have a licensing cost to it. But I mean, what we have seen for massive transformations of companies like ANZ, with the example we had, the payback of massive and big digitization in intelligent automation projects is typically in the range of 10 to 14 months. So it's very fast. Mm-hmm. And on small projects, I mean, the little things I do with my own team here to keep them excited and have fun and cut monotonous, low value adding work here, I think the ROI is just unbelievably fast, because we immediately cut out dumb work, boring work, work nobody likes anyway. And for us, it's very easy. I mean, we don't fire anyone, because I have an unbelievable need for what I call experiential learning sort of services we provide, and I need my team for that. I don't need them to push paper. Yeah. Mm-hmm. On the last chart, you can see here, this is the book, and we have about 500 use cases in the book at the end. So you can look at all the examples there are. A number of the AI transformation successes. And there's also a survey. You can see over 200 intelligent automation industry experts here. So the book, on one hand, tells a story. So there is, we really talk about the sort of also what happens to our societies, what's the optimistic scenario, pessimistic scenario, the democratization part of it. What are the barriers for success? What are the key sort of drivers for success of intelligent automation projects? So a lot of these things are in there, including all of these resources. And I'm very happy to say that the book was on the bestseller list for Amazon for many, many months after the launch. And the other nice thing about this book is actually all of the authors, all of us agreed to donate all royalties actually to needy students to help them to pick up precisely those skills here. Yeah. And of course, we have 3 authors here. Each author has their own pet projects, but so I give my money mostly to scholarships for MBA students here from developing countries at my school. And my co-authors, they have other projects. But I think the nice thing is we all agreed we did this book for passion, for the passion we have in intelligent automation, and not really for the money.
Yes, no, I think that's fantastic, and I think the message we'd like to leave our members with is, if you're currently still involved in the process world and helping your organization get their arms around maturing those processes. This is a fantastic handbook of what's coming next. You'll be working on some facet of these types of projects, is our belief. And we're trying to provide as much forward-looking advice as we can for our members. And I think it's a great asset to have this book. It's available at a highly affordable price through Amazon. It's literally under $10. We also will have a code on the website for you where you can buy the book in hard copy as well. So that is as close to a no-brainer as I could think for folks that are looking down the path on what's going to be happening next in their career. You'll notice there's a QR code on the page. If you scan that, it'll take you out to the website for the book where you can get some additional details. And Jochen, if I could, before we let you go, I've got a few questions I'd like to ask. Maybe the first one is, there's a lot of information in the book, but if I asked you to boil it down, what are the 3 things that BPM practitioners need to know about intelligent automation?
I think the first one is when you go into intelligent automation, really start with the customer journey first. You have to have a clear value proposition, clear value map of what you're trying to do. And again, whether you are internal services, shared service, or external is the same, you have to be able to deliver frictionless customer journeys. Like if you want to see a best practice, I mentioned WISE, and I have no shares in WISE, I have no interest in WISE. It's really, I was blown away by what they have done. So start with this vision on what would an end-to-end frictionless journey would look like. And I think start with the assumption that unless you have real emotions in there, so there's a real value add for dealing with a person, try to automate it. Mm-hmm. And here the biggest hindrance I always see is a lot of people come to me, but Jochen, don't you miss personal contact? Then I always come back and say, look, listen, I mean, so you value personal contact, right? And they say, yes, of course. And I say, okay, so the last time you cashed money, when did you go inside the bank to a teller or did you go to the ATM? And then they look at me and they say, look, it's very few people who like to go to the ATM, do like to go to a human teller. And actually, you look at virtually all calls to a call center. None of them really enjoy talking to the agent. They all want a problem fixed. And I think that should be the outlook, the perspective to approach this whole thing. And then, I mean, for me, because I teach a lot of students and they always say, but you know, I need the CEO and God knows what to give me permission and drive it and behind it and get budget. Every program and course I do, I always ask them, within your realm of responsibility. So we all have jobs. We all have people who work for us, work with us, and we do things. So which of those processes can you automate? And I can promise you, I'm with the National University of Singapore. We had a legacy SAP system, which we thankfully kicked out. So now we have an almost equally clumsy new SAP system, but that's a different story. But I mean, I give you one example. So we have an executive MBA, and we are outside the billing cycle of the university, and we have maybe 200 odd students in this program. And the team spent like every quarter, a day and a half, printing invoices and sending invoices. Very boring and so on, error prone. So they're all gung-ho RPA. So how do we RPA the whole thing, right? And then we said, okay, we need to connect to our SAP finance system. And then we talked to finance. And, you know, by having this attitude that I want to make it seamless and fully automated, we approached finance and they never entertained us, right? We are lowest priority. There's always something else that is higher priority. But now us coming and where's the interface? If you want to do this now, suddenly, oh, you know what, even with an SAP, this functionality is there. Let us help you to get it. So, I mean, we have done it now without RPA, by asking these questions, we found solutions that in the end had nothing to do with RPA, but without this initiative trying to automate stuff, we would not have asked the questions. And likewise, this whole attitude, I mean, the Development Bank of Singapore, DBS, they won, I think 4 or 5 years ago for 2-3 years in a row, the world's best digital bank, and the last 2 years, the world's best bank. And they are digital to the core, they counted. And so, I mean, there's also one of my former students worked with them. He just published a book on their transformation journey. And one of the stories I liked was also, I mean, the attitude number one, every call to the call center is a service failure. It means that customer couldn't get things fixed on the website, on the self-help, web, online, whatever app. The FAQs, chatbot didn't help. So it's a failure. And so they regularly, every 3 months, do their frequency counts. Why do people call us? How can I design that out of the system? And I give you one very simple example. 3% or 4% of all calls were people whose ATM card or credit card was swallowed by a machine. Yeah, there was some defect on the magnetic stripe or the chip, or customer keyed in the wrong number 3 times wrong, or something like that. And you can predict with a 99 point whatever % probability that customer is going to call you in the next 3 days. Hey, you know, your machine swallowed my card. I need a new card. So if you want to design these processes out, they've done this now. The minute this card is swallowed, a push message gets sent to that customer. Hey, dear customer, we noticed your card was taken by this ATM in this downtown location. We will send you a new replacement card within 3 working days. If you do not want a replacement card, please respond with N. End of story, right? A call that cost me before $8 per call and that happens thousands of times a year is gone. So when you talk about intelligent automation, I don't think the technology is the key driver. It is a different approach to these things. And I think it is sort of to say every call is a failure. Yeah. So I mean, to me, this is the key, the customer focus, this frictionless journey, and this admission to that actually this call is a failure, right? So what do I do about it? And then, of course, the other is, to me, the other key takeaways is, if you do not train your people in these basic technologies, they're going to be outdated in 3, 4, 5 years from now. So you do your people a favor and there are very cheap courses out there. Many of them are free. In 1 day, you can learn basic RPA on a free software, and you can do very simple stuff. So, I mean, I gave my team an option. You can either do an RPA course or an analytics course, but you have to do one of the two. Mm-hmm. You know, and then next year you do the other one. And so we have a whole roadmap on this. And then at the same time, we institutionalized a innovation award where teams can present their awards. They were not linked to technology per se, but many turned out to be Tableau-driven, analytics-driven, automation-driven, but not all. And so to got people excited to do projects. I need my people to do projects, because if you don't do projects, things don't improve. So if you do the same thing day in and day out and don't improve anything, how in the world are you going to automate anything? So for me, the whole approach, if you can see here, is on one hand, I of course kick and scream upstairs, which is my shared services and IT, and tell them you guys are behind the curve. But at the same time, I'm doing this bottoms-up, democratized approach to intelligent automation. So I do both things here. And I think, and I have another colleague who started doing the same. So if in an organization you have enough people to do that, you will see their success stories. And I mean, we have a town hall here at the business school every 6 months. And the dean was so excited about the chatbot and a Tableau analytics team we use to analyze, let's say, who are our successful students. So how should that drive our admission decisions here? That he asked those team members to present to the whole business school, look what they do. And you know, the first thing that came out, okay, the MBA office is doing this, MSc office, the Master of Science office, do you do this too? Or undergraduate office, do you do this too? And they can see immediately there's sort of a pressure, an urgency in the whole organization. If they can do that, you should look into that too. And I think that is how you get a bottom-up culture change and automation drive going. And then the top-down, I think many of your members are quite familiar with. I mean, you do have your CEO, you have your governance council, you have your centers of excellence. And I mean, these are all the standard tools, but I think we shouldn't wait until something comes down from head office to keep us going. I think we all are leaders in our own areas and we can influence what happens there. And I mean, a university historically is not the most we teach all of these things, but we're not the most technologically advanced institutions, you know?
Right.
Yeah, I mean, if I look at our finance department and IT department and all of this, I mean, I'm lucky now that more and more of them take our executive MBA, so I tease them there. So, you know, we are so happy to train you here.
Yes, it's something that's called, you know, eating your own cooking sometimes.
Absolutely.
All right, great. And you know, so many of our members are from the service sector. Could I ask you to talk a little bit about where you see the impact of intelligent automation on services?
What we will see is that same as what happened in the Industrial Revolution. I mean, you think about this, before the late 18th century, a lady bought one handbag in her life, had to work many months to save money to buy that handbag. Today, with Industrial Revolution, a lady can buy a handbag every month if she likes. Is mass manufactured, high quality, good. You still have the hand-stitched Hermes and Louis Vuitton handbags, and they still cost you an arm and a leg, and you have to work a month or longer to buy it. And I see the service sector, including education, where I am in, going the same direction, that a lot of service offerings will become top-notch quality, completely scalable, and there will be a massive consolidation of providers. There will be only those left who can produce the scale. And there will be room for a few Hermes type of luxury providers, whether that's education or healthcare or banking, yes. So there will be, like in the Industrial Revolution, a lot of the mom and pop kind of service operations, and even the mid-sized and larger companies, if they're not fast enough, that includes banks, telcos, insurance companies, they will go under. That's one. The second is that currently still some companies sort of position on customer service, and that will go away for a large part simply because no bank positions on ATMs. ATMs are bought from third parties, and let's say a retail solution where you have, let's say, in the Samsung section of your electronics store, there will be a beamed virtual holograph that can explain to you anything about Samsung products in 20 different languages. and can ask you exactly the 3-4 questions they need to ask you to understand exactly what computer screen you need for your home and then recommend it to you. These type of solutions will not be developed by retailers because they don't have the scale. There will be a whole new industry that will emerge that will deliver retail solutions, restaurant front office solutions, restaurant back office solutions. And from a strategy angle, it really means you have to think very carefully on how to position yourself, what do you want to own to be able to capture value. And so historically, what we know is people who either own the point of sale, who own the customer relationships. A point of sale could be an app, could be a website, like TripAdvisor owns the point of sale here. That's why they can command 25, 27% commission on selling a hotel room, and that is at a gross margin of 35% for the hotel. So they're eating a huge part of that value. Owning the customer relationship, that means who do I ask for advice, right? I mean, I go to a shop, what running shoes do you recommend for a hard surface for me? And I mean, you can tell me Nike or Under Armour or Adidas. And whoever you ask, there's a huge power. So I should own the point of sale. I should own the customer relationship. Brands are very, very important. As we all trust brands, so brand has a lot of power. Yep. And then in the future, scale, network effects, infrastructure become very important. If you're not big enough, you're not going to survive. So you can see the whole industry will change. There will be new players coming up. And I would expect, like that happened during the manufacturing industrial revolution, where a lot of the small factories just went under. And today you look at how many car manufacturers do we have, right? How many, and so on. And the service sector is completely distributed, many tiny operations here. So there will be a massive opportunity for someone come in. So I expect franchising and so on to become much more powerful. I want the local expertise. I want the motivation of the local team. But no, I don't want you to fiddle with robotics and holographs and processes and all of this. I give you all of that, right?
Right.
So I think we are in for a massive restructuring of our economies, and there are incredible upsides as well as huge challenges, especially for all the legacy companies. Right. I mean, I've been a long-term suffering shareholder of Deutsche Bank, and one of the key hindrances they have is the IT system. They can't integrate that stuff. And here you have new, completely digital banks come up who are on a very different architecture at a fraction of the cost of these legacy banks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think there's a wave of change coming, and so I think folks really need to dig into this and, exactly as you mentioned, figure out where they want to be for this next wave. So Professor Jochen Wirtz, I want to thank you so much for your time today and introducing the book and its concepts to our members. Also want to thank you for your passion for the topic, which is a bit infectious, I have to say. And so I hope we've inspired folks to learn more. As before we break, I just wanted to let folks know that between now and the end of the year, we still have 3 online events that we'll be holding. We have these are all virtual events for 2021. We're hoping our face-to-face events will return early next year. But I did want to mention also that in November in New York City, we have a virtual New York event, and it'll be the debut of an all-new digital transformation curriculum from us. There'll also be new certificate programs available through BPM Institute for process mining, intelligent automation, and citizen development. And so, Professor Hirschner, we will do our part to try to introduce and get folks up to speed on those topics. And I know that you'll keep doing the same down in Singapore.
Thank you, Greg. It was a great pleasure being with you today. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And we'll see everyone on our next upcoming webcast.